Ah, it's filthy. Sorry about that. Good morning. Today's video is a little bit of a follow-on from a previous video I did, which was do you really need a tripod? The purpose of that video was really just for me to figure out if I've kind of somewhat become institutionalized from taking a tripod out every time I go out for a hike. I think as photographers, and we do the landscape genre, it does get drummed into us a little bit. That a tripod is really necessary for your composition, for the might need a slow shutter if you're doing waterfalls or whatever. And I just thought, maybe I should just challenge that, see how important a tripod is to some of those kind of looks and feels of those images. And especially today, we've got like a lot of cameras with in-body stabilization, whether it was really necessary, because some of the walks I do in the Blue Mountains, they're very brutal. They have very steep ascent and descents, and they're very tiring. And so I think a lot of people that do photography and hike can understand that weight issue being very critical. And we decide, we can think for days and days about our lens choices and which lenses to leave behind. But the tripod always just seems to make it into the bag or onto the bag, because quite often there are annoying things that don't really go in a bag. And if it rains and it's on the outside of the bag and you can't put your rain cover over your backpack because the tripod, yeah. So they're difficult things to use. So I just woke up and still look tired, getting sleep out of my eyes. Oh. So anyway, it was a really good experience for me to do that, and just ditch the tripod for that one hike. That was a very brutal one, about 8-10 hours. And but it did make me think, though. There were still times I felt as though I was still quite exhausted, because I was holding myself quite tense for some of the shots to get the slow shutter speed. And so I was getting fatigued in a different way. I wasn't getting fatigued from a weight way, but it's almost related to like when you do weddings and stuff where you're working all day, you start to get a sore back and things like that. I was starting to feel that kind of fatigue. So it made me think about a monopod. Now I've had monopods in the past, just little ones like this with clips, this kind of stuff. I think these ones are quite okay if they go in a belt pouch or something like that, and you extend it out, and so you're using your own person as a bit of an anchor rather than going long enough to go down to the ground. But I wanted to see if I could find something else, and so eventually I asked on a forum for advice on monopods and things, and people gave me their suggestions, but eventually I settled on one, and that's what we're going to talk about today. And this is it here. Ta-da! So it's not going to be a big review about this tripod. This is the iFootage Cobra 2 Strike A150S-2. I think this actually might be discontinued now, but it's a very unique tripod because it does this twisty thing. Okay, so you extend the pole and get different heights. So for me, that was really the defining element to this particular monopod as to why I wanted to buy it, because I thought a lot about it, and I've got other tripods that are, you've got the clippy the leg style, and all that flapping about of getting the tripod out, extending all the legs for a shot, just takes time. Just takes a long time to set up for the shot and pack it away. And here I had something that could just get me the height super quick for the shot I was trying to do. And the other thing is, it depends on the style of photography I think you do as well. When I go hiking, I quite like to have a little bit of a, not documentary style, but I like to tell a story. So it's not, my camera would be quite often out in my hand as I'm doing the walk. And if I see something I want to photograph, it means I don't have to put my bag down and reach into the bag to pull the camera out, set the tripod up. I'm just trying to be fairly fluid and get through the walk, but take shots along the way. Excuse me. And that's my kind of style, and so that's why I thought the monopod would work quite well. And so I've had a couple of walks now with it. I've taken it with a medium format camera, the 645D, which has no in-body image stabilization, and I've taken it out with a Pentax K1, which does have image stabilization, and yeah, and so it's been good to use it with both of those two cameras, because sometimes in these sort of rainforests as well, especially if it's an overcast day, wet, you show that it can be dim down there, and even shooting wide open at 1.4 f2, you can still have very low shutter speeds down at 1/120th or less to get the shot if you don't want an ISO up at 6400 or something hideous. In fact, I think the 645D's got a maximum ISO of 1600, and it also has a maximum aperture at f2.8. So that camera in particular is quite hard to just walk around with in your hand and take a shot in those kind of conditions. So something to help steady the camera a little bit, I think is welcome. So look, I'm just made a little pro and con list that I'll go through with this particular tripod. Like I say, I'm going to actually link you in the comments below better reviews of this tripod. Why? I'm not going to do what everybody else has done on this particular model. That's just silly. I'll link you at those links that are going to better explain the features of that tripod. But I just wanted to give you a more kind of practical experience of how I felt with this particular tripod. And the important thing to note is I think it's actually been superseded now as something different, and iFootage are no longer doing this extend and shaft trick, which is a shame because I think it's quite good. Anyway, the pros. Okay, so it's got little feet at the bottom, and I wasn't sure if I would need them or if I could just make use with the take the feet off and just using this little rubber stopper on the bottom. But I have to say, I think the feet element of a monopod like this is absolutely instrumental. I think it's really important that you put one of your foot down on the feet of the monopod, and it really helps you get that height position that you want quickly. I think now that I've used it all the time, I mean, I just walk around with it with its feet out like this all the time, so I can just put it down on the ground and get that position quickly. So yeah, I feel like that's one of its strongest strengths, to be honest. And I know it's not the only monopod out there that has that, but that foot feature in conjunction with the sliding shaft, telescopic shaft thing to get the angle and height that you want quickly, it's really good, and it helps speed up the flow of the shoot. So it might actually be probably one of the quickest monopods to get the height you want quickly within a certain range. I've got one of the cons is the actual length. You can't get it too low. That's half the problem as well. So it's not a monopod that can go very low, or not very low, medium low. You get stuck at. There's been a few shots like maybe a flower coming out the ground or something, and I just can't get to the height I want with this monopod. So that's a shame. Yeah, the legs do separate from the. Hang on. I'll show this in a video and some B-roll. But yeah, the whole base comes off here. And so the legs do separate away from the shaft, and you can put the other clippy bit in top here, and so you can mount the camera. So it does actually, I have used it as a tripod as well when I'm out and about. So it does double up as a tripod monopod thing for certain shots. Now I used to be quite a purist when it came to do a landscape. It's like you gotta scout the scene. You've got to find the strongest angle, strongest composition, and that's where you plonk down your tripod and you take the shot. Yeah, I get that. That's true. And using something like a monopod, or finding a little rock for this to sit on, is not really fitting with that kind of ethos, right? But I've also kind of, when I'm at the base of a waterfall, there can be a river running off from that waterfall. It can be kind of difficult terrain, slippy rocks. You're maybe just not going to stand, 2 foot in water to try and get your shot anyway at the strongest scene, or just wade right in, So I don't know. It's like part of me felt as though I was already compromising anyway on the environment and where I could be on that environment, because it was tricky and treacherous. So this is just another compromise of mine to just find an angle, find a rock that works, set it up, and just take the shot there. But certainly it's a bit of a negative, of course. You can't be a tripod, and that's really the point of my summary was, if you need a tripod when you go out for the type of work you do, if you're going to do a 2 minutes long exposure to get those clouds blurry, you can't do it with the monopod. That's just that, There's some waterfalls, for example, that I feel as though I can blur the waterfall sufficiently, but the pool of water at the bottom stays still looking a bit static, and I think those images I'm never very pleased with. I feel like there's this kind of juxtaposition between the slow-mo of the waterfall and the slow roll of the water at the bottom, because that needs a lot longer shutter time to get it to become to get the two elements of water to tie in together, if that makes sense. So sometimes I feel as though I need 10 seconds or 5 seconds for a long exposure, even though the waterfall would be fine at 1 second or half a second. It's the water at the bottom of the waterfall that's in the image. That's what needs the longer shutter speed. So there's just some things a monopod can't do. But if you look, and I've got another one in my cons here, is I don't really think it's really made me shoot any slower. In my previous video, I was managing to get about 1/8 of a second quite consistently handheld with image stabilization cameras on things like waterfalls and not have any camera blur. Obviously, I've got motion blur of the water, but I'm talking about when you inspect at 100% or 200% and you're looking at something static like a rock face. I'm not seeing camera blur or handshake from those images at about 1/8. Occasionally, I could pull it off at 1/6, but it felt a little bit more like a 50-50 kind of success rate. If I was going for something like 1/6 of a second, I'd probably have to be in burst mode a little bit, and just hopefully 1 out of 8 or 9 of those shots would be good. With this monopod, I think I've maybe got down to about a quarter on one quarter of a second at the very most. But again, that was very, very risky. I think I would still be taking shots around about 1/8 or 1/6. Not really any slower. So the price as well, I think, is a bit of a pro, actually. I paid about $200 for this monopod. It's very well built. It doesn't feel flimsy. It feels quite premium all around. From the other reviewers, they all seem to think this price is good. I don't really know. I'm not a monopod person. I know tripods can be expensive, but this seems to be a unique kind of monopod. Not many other companies do something like this. So I was expecting maybe, another $100 on top of this price point. So that was nice to see. It's not too expensive. 200 Aussie dollars, by the way. And then, one of the things I liked the most about it was this, when I used something like the Pentax K1 and you're using live view and you are shooting a shallow depth of field and you want to go maximum magnification, I find these days I just can't hold the camera too close to my body because my eyesight's getting worse. So I'm having to hold the camera further out. And if it's not on a monopod, then that holding that camera out, that weight gets to you eventually, and it gets you sore back after doing that continuously throughout the day. Here, that process is a dream. It's just so much easier just to have that weight on a monopod and set up for the shot. So I really like it. And I like the little discs that it came with. I'll show you this somewhere else later. I don't know if you can see as well. It's got a little springy bit there to take different threads. Because then you can mount that directly onto the camera itself. You can do it that way. I've mounted mine on a Manfrotto adapter thing, for the Manfrotto system. So that's what mine sits on, because I've got multiple cameras there that use that are on Manfrotto plates, so that's why I've used that. But if you had something like the 645D or a different L plate or something like that, you could just put them on direct. The only problem is mine only came with one, and I had to buy another one separately for L plate usage, and I feel that's a bit of a shame. I think they should probably always pack 2 of them, and they're quite hard to get. Like, I couldn't get any in my country. I had to get one from Amazon, which I think got shipped direct from iFootage, which I think is a USA company, I think. So I had to wait for that to come overseas. But yeah, look, it's still a bit heavy though. It would have been nice if it was a bit lighter, but it's certainly, walking around with it in your hand, it's not that heavy. It feels like it can be a little bit wiggly. This might be one of the reasons why it got discontinued and replaced with ones that are more of a what do you call these not twist locks, flip. I can't remember. Anyway, it's got replaced with one like that, I think, and it's maybe because even when I've got this monopod all lined up and everything's tight, I can still feel it wiggling a little bit sharp. Now that doesn't bother me. I'm not doing video really with it or but maybe that was a deal breaker. It's just, monopods have to be very, very sturdy. It's not been an issue for me in what I use the tripod, the monopod for. Yeah, and I think that's it. That's it, really. I'm just looking at my notes here. I'm just seeing if I've left anything out. Not really. I mean, I've shown a video. I might have shown it already in this footage, or I'll show it now. But basically, I've got absolutely no regrets for this purchase, and I think it's going to be the thing that's going to come out with me more often than not on future hikes and bushwalks that I do. I'll probably leave the tripod more at home. My tripod in particular is a very, very heavy one anyway. But I should really, purchase a carbon fiber one and spend that 1,000 or 2,000 that you need to get a really, really good light one. That would probably solve a lot of my problems. But I really enjoy it. I just enjoy it for this idea of being able to quickly set up for a shot, get the shot, and pack it away and move on. I can't imagine, even if I'm using something like a carbon fiber, which has reduced the weight load and all that kind of stuff, it's still not going to be as fast to get certain shots as this thing. And so, yeah, I think that's probably, I'm going to use this one a lot more when I'm out and about, because it just suits my kind of storytelling. It just gets really, you get really over having to pull the tripod out the bag every sort of and you just don't know what's coming on some of these bushwalks and what you're going to see next. So it's hard to explain. When you watch landscaping videos, right, you can see somebody just walking across, Scotland, peats and hills, and they got the camera in the bag and the tripod in the bag, and they're just walking for miles and miles till they get to their location. That's not really how the walks that I do in my area work. Once you get out of the car, there's stuff to shoot straight away, whether it be, fungus, plants, a scene from the cliff face. It goes, so it's just, the Blue Mountains is a very different area, and you're walking through this trail. There's always something to stop and shoot, and just this constant holding a heavy tripod in your hand, pulling the legs apart, adjusting each clip, getting the right height for a shot, only to pack it all away again. It's a real drag, and it puts a downer on the whole experience. But at the same time, it's quite hard to get some of the shots that you want handheld as well. And that's where this comes in. And I think it's just been a really wonderful investment. And yeah, obviously not paid to say this. I don't know who I footage don't know who I am. I've got 500 subscribers. I'm not here for any of that kind of nonsense. But yeah, it's just my genuine thoughts on this piece of equipment. All right. So I hope you enjoy this video. And if you've got any questions, comments, hit like, subscribe, comment below. Let me know. Thank you very much.